Okay, so I want to tell a little story about this thing that happened to me one time in Israel when I was living down in a lot. Okay, so I ended up living in a lot for about 3 years, which, of course, no one ever intends that. A lot's one of these places you go down there and they're like, yeah, I'm going to go down there, I'm going to work, save a bunch of money, stay for like 6 months, maybe a year, and then I'm gone. Of course, 1 year turned to two, and then two turned to three before I knew it. Yeah. And the reason you can save so much money down there is a lot of the hotels, which is pretty much the only industry they have. Like most of the workers down there are hotel workers. It's just hotel workers and tourists and a few retirees go down there and buy and rent houses, apartments. And they have this worker housing that's like super cheap, right? I'm talking some of these places are as cheap as $150 a month. They just take it out of your paycheck automatically. You don't have to worry about paying it. And, if you're cheap and you're smart with your money, you could save a lot. But unfortunately, the downside is you have to live with a roommate. Now, sometimes you'll get lucky and your roommate will leave, or you just won't have one when you move in. And like one time I went 6 weeks in one of these places and I never had to live with anybody. But most of the time I was not that lucky. And some of the roommates were good, some of them were really bad. And including this one guy named Oleg. He was either Russian or Ukrainian. I don't know, same fucking thing to me. They don't like it when you do that. You call a Ukrainian guy Russian, right?
I am no Russian, I'm Ukrainsky, Ukraine.
Whatever. And I only lived with this guy for like a couple of weeks, right? And he was almost never there. Which you could argue made the whole thing completely ridiculous and a waste. But this guy would snore like a motherfucker. Like the few nights that he did sleep in the room, not somewhere else. And I hate snoring, right? I mean, I will fucking fist fight you over snoring. That's how much I hate it. And this guy would literally snore for like 8 hours straight. Now, most snorers will stop for a while. Oh, no. This was straight through all night long. And it was driving me up a wall. And then finally, in like the third or fourth night of this, I wake this guy up. And he just immediately starts flipping out on me. And we had a little, let's say, a language barrier problem. Because at the time, I didn't speak much Hebrew. And he didn't speak a word of English. Most of these Russians that come to Israel are like non-English speaking motherfuckers. So he could only stand there and like get in my face and threaten me in broken English.
I thought you wake me up, I fuck you. I fuck you.
And like that's really all he could say. And yeah, this guy's just standing there threatening me. It was at least 4 or 5 minutes, right? And finally I'm thinking like, Jesus, just fucking swing already. Just hit me already. This is pissing me off. Are you going to do something or not? And then I'll tell you in the end, both of us were equally guilty in starting this and instigating it further. Like he actually turns around to go back to sleep. And I say something else to him and he couldn't understand what I was saying. But he just heard me talking and comes right back. And we get into it again. And then finally, he goes to the kitchen, takes like a glass of water and throws it in my face. Right? Like, I'm one of these people that will get more angry about shit like that than if he just hauled off and punched me. Like, you want to hit me? Go ahead. I can take a punch. But don't do no pussy-ass little girl shit. Throw water at me. What kind of man does that? And as soon as he threw the water at me, I fucking shoved him across the kitchen, right into a wall. And then, like, maybe 30 seconds later, he comes after me and just starts swinging at me, and it's on. Now, this snake, this slimy motherfucker, noticed that I wore glasses, and he calculated that I was blind without them, especially in the dark. So, before he did this, he turned off all the lights in the kitchen in the apartment, so I couldn't see. Well, he was right, because I was basically blind, and all I could do was fucking stand there as this guy just rained punches on me and hit me repeatedly. And even though he couldn't have weighed more than 145, 150 pounds max, this guy hit like a fucking tank. I didn't know anyone that small could hit that hard. He definitely had some kind of boxing or martial arts training, to a certain degree, because nobody that size has that kind of natural power. Like, there was weight behind the punches, and it was one of those guys that, like, every time he hits you, it just, like, rocks you, and you're just wondering how he hasn't knocked your ass out yet. But this guy must have punched me in the face about 25 times, right? Every one of them was hard. And I never knew how much I could take a punch until that night. I mean, I'd been hit before, and I took it, but not like that. And even though he was cheating and that part of the fight didn't really count, he still beat the living shit out of me, right? He fucked my ass up. And, of course, people for some reason look at me like I'm a pussy. And, like, I'm this guy you could just hit once and just knock out. Like, I'm just a one-punch knockout. Like, oh, this guy can't fight. He's gonna drop like a sack of potatoes. And yet, on, like, punch 20, power punch to the face, I'm still standing. And not only am I standing, but I'm still coming after this guy. I wasn't, like, cowered in a corner with, like, my hands over my face, hoping he'd stop. No, I was really trying to fight him. And he was also faster than me, too. And again, like, he had some training. So I wasn't doing too well in a boxing arena. But once I managed to get the lights back on, the fight ended up spilling into the bathroom. And then I managed to, like, get this guy in a headlock. And he couldn't do shit with me, because I guess I was physically stronger than he was. Like, he was trying to break out of it, but he couldn't break my grip. And I had a chance to just choke this guy out. Like, lights out. And fight over. But my crazy ass, I'm like, well, that's a cheat. Like, I want to beat him in his own game. Even though he'd been out boxing me already, and I don't think I had much of a chance to beat him standing up, I was just like, no, I want to beat the shit out of him. I still want to try. So my crazy ass lets this guy go, right? Like, I let him out of the headlock, and we keep going. And then at one point, like I said, we're in the bathroom, right? I tried to literally throw him through the shower glass. Like, the door was closed, and I took him and spun around and tried to fucking throw him. And I didn't throw him, but he kind of stumbled into the glass and broke it, like, without falling through it. So now the whole bathtub is just, like, covered with glass, right? And he did make me bleed a little bit. Okay, more than that. But there was blood on the floor. There was blood on the walls. There was blood in the bathroom. There was blood in the hallway. I mean, this was just a straight up fucking brawl, right? And it probably lasted close to 5 minutes, which for a street fight is an eternity. Fist fight. And yeah, but even though he punched me 1,000,000 times in the face, like I said, that was a cheat because I couldn't see. It's like picking up sand and throwing it in your eyes. Doesn't count. But once the lights came on, it was basically even after that. I even had the upper hand because I did put him in the chokehold headlock. So in the end, I called it a draw. And then I figured, like, okay, if we're going to keep fighting standing up, I need a little bit more open space. You know, I figured I'd have more of an advantage if it wasn't a tight space. So I go out in the hallway hoping he's going to follow me and chase me out there. And he ends up just slamming the door shut behind me and locking it. So technically, both of us were like pussies. I looked like I was running away, but he looked like he was too afraid to open the door. And then, of course, everybody sees my face. And, well, I had like a bloody mouth, but that was about it. Other than that, he didn't leave a mark on me, despite how many times he hit me. And as hard as he hit me. And, of course, the building security guard had to come up there and investigate it. And then he ends up calling the Israeli police, called the cops. And lucky that I was friends with the security guy, and he wrote a very, let's say, favorable incident report that pretty much made me look like an innocent victim. And also to the cops, who didn't know either of us at all they see is this, tough, intimidating looking Russian guy. He did look intimidating. And this, like, weak little pussy with a bloody mouth. If you just came up and saw that, you would think I got totally destroyed. Right? And I definitely looked like the victim. So we both ended up, me and Oleg had to go to the police station in a lot. And they asked me if I wanted to press charges. And I'm like, you know what? No, I don't think I'm going to do that. Because, no. I'm thinking in my head, like I said, we're both equally guilty. We're both the bad guys here. And if I press charges on him, he may press charges on me. Because I hit him too. And I tried to throw him through glass and everything. I'm like, I ain't going to jail. Fuck it, let him go. But like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes later, after I finished giving my statement, which this guy was honest, I asked the cop, did Oleg give the same story? And the cop's like, yeah, he did. He confirmed what you said. I was like, oh, good, at least he's not lying to try and get me in trouble, like some other people have done to me. And then I come out in the hallway, and this guy is sitting on a bench with his hands handcuffed in front of him. And I'm like, what the fuck? Thinking like, why is he being arrested? I didn't press charges. And I look at this guy like, oops, sorry. That wasn't me, bro. I swear to God, I did not do that. I don't know if I signed some piece of paper in Hebrew saying I wanted to press charges. Like the cops were just overzealous and wanted to prosecute somebody. And they would just, yeah, they will do that in certain countries. They'll be like, oh, sign this piece of paper so you can go home. Oh, you just confessed. You're going to jail now. Shouldn't have signed that, buddy. But whatever. So he goes to jail for at least a night. Ends up getting kicked out of the room. And so now I have my own room for like the next month and a half, which was nice. I mean, I had to get my ass beat to get it. But at least I got my own room, right? No more roommates, no more snoring, nothing. But, yeah, he definitely got the short end of the stick in that incident. Pretty short. And, I watched him come in, of course, escorted by security, so he couldn't start any more shit with me. Or me start with him. And he got his things, he packed them up, walked out the door. I never saw the motherfucker again, obviously. I have no idea what happened to him. But, yeah, that was my little story about my old roommate Oleg, who turned out to be this psycho that definitely did not like being woken up from snoring. And we ended up getting into a huge bloody brawl over it. But I got the better of it in the end. What a time. What a fucking time.